Hi,
Hi.
I'm Silvana Wasitova. I'm Agile coach in Switzerland. How many of you are doing Agile transformation? Few of you? In your organization, yeah? And how far along are you? How far along is your transformation?
3 years.
3 years, okay. How far did you get so far? Where are you at? What would you say? How would you characterize this?
We still have the resistance.
There's still some resistance. Okay. Others?
I think we start now on the work making technical Scrum, but more by change the mindset, change and the organization.
Absolutely. Changing the culture and the mindset is actually the hard part, like what the previous speaker said. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit of what I've done, what I've seen, what we've experienced. First, those were questions for you to give context to what I should share with you. Just a little bit about me. I have been doing Scrum since 2005. At that time, I was with Yahoo and with Yahoo in Silicon Valley, and then Yahoo Germany, Yahoo France, Yahoo Switzerland, and then the last 7 years I've been coaching companies in their Agile transitions. And that's companies that includes Nestle, Microsoft, Skype. So companies that are quite serious about what they want to do and the deliveries they want to make, and also they want to be better at doing it. So this is what I'll share with you today. And at Yahoo, this is when I was the Scrum Master there for 5 years, my teams included the FIFA World Cup 2006. This was our team's product. This was the team behind the team's product. And Yahoo Movies and Yahoo Sports. And you know what comes with sports? In 2008, we had this. We had 08 Olympics in Beijing. And that meant a date that is set in stone. So when somebody says, with Agile you can't do fixed date, our team has done. So Agile can do many, many things for you. Of course, it's different from how things were done before or how things were done traditionally. The classical response to why do Agile, why transition, are the desired benefits. This is from the version 1. You can take a picture, it's fine, but it's actually publicly available version 1 survey that they have been doing for 11 years. And it's consistent that what people desire from Agile transformation is managing changing priorities, increased productivity, and improved visibility. This is consistent year after year after year. These are the benefits. If we break this down further, I'll break it down further later. But our experience at Yahoo, we started the transformation. We started in 2004 with an experiment. In 2005, a decision was made, or in late 2004, the decision was made, we will transition to Agile way of working. And what it meant is that we didn't force teams to do it. It was available, and support and training was available to teams that were interested. And my team was one of the early adopters. In 2005, we hired the director of Agile development, and by 2008, we had about 200 Scrum teams. This is a big organization. And this was 200 Scrum teams, mostly Silicon Valley and some European teams, not yet touching the India operation. And that included 1,500 employees. And this was no small matter. And then we actually calculated, what is it giving us? It's a lot of effort to get this kind of transition. And we calculated that in 2008, The team velocity increased on average about 35%. That's how much they actually delivered in terms of features. In some teams, it was 300 to 400%. So it was clearly giving us great benefits. And when we calculated the reduction in cost of delay, the actual deliver early and get the benefits early, get the payments earlier, we actually realized cost reduction of $1 million a year and an ROI on the transition, on the cost of having the coaches, the trainings, the lost time to do the trainings, that we, within the first year alone, we recapped an ROI of 100%. So in our case, it was very clear. In that case, it was very clear. And this became a clear direction that this is where we want to move from now on. There was another famous case in Silicon Valley at that time, which to this day, I hold up as one of the incredible cases. And this was a transition of Salesforce.com in 2007. Why was this incredible? Like everyone else, they start with, we'll do one pilot project. And they were so convinced with that one pilot project that after one project, they said, everybody is transitioning. Within their Silicon Valley operations, they hired 15 coaches and went all out, all teams, getting trained, getting on this way of working. And within 1 year, they converted all of their Silicon Valley operations into Agile. And the next year, all of their India operations to Agile. It's the most lightning speed transition I have ever heard of. I mean, everybody else is transitioning, but usually it takes a little longer than that. And in their case, this is one of their study reports. What happened was they were chugging along from the start time in 2000 to about 2005. They were sort of chugging along fine. And then they found that the time, the days between major releases kept on increasing. And by end of 2006, they were down to 1 release a year. And the CTO saw the writing on the wall and said, if we keep going this way, we are toast as a company. We have to change something. This is where they introduced Agile, and right after that, they came back to frequent releases and also the number of features delivered per team getting increased. So within the adoption of 3 months, training everybody, and within 1 year, changing their ways of working, the result within that 1 year is that critical features were delivered in less than 9 months, and the idea to release, they captured this, and they were able to capitalize on any idea and getting it into production in 2.2 quarters, which is a far cry from where they made the change. And 70% of the top 10 ideas were on track for delivery within that year. Now, these are old examples, okay? This is 2008, 2007. Earlier this year, I helped a company transition, trained all their developers, trained their product owners, trained their finance officers, and within 3 months, they saw a difference to their bottom line. The results speak for themselves. The results are the reasons we transitioned to Agile. It's not because Jeff Sutherland says something, or Ken Schwaber, or it's the new thing. Who cares? But if it helps you and your company be better, then there's something in it, and it's worth considering. The common releases, this is back from the version 1 State of Agile survey. The common reasons, the reasons companies adopt is to accelerate product delivery, enhance ability to manage change priorities, increase productivity, and so on. These are not really surprises, and okay, we have the numbers with that. Interestingly, these are the reasons, and these are the results. Actually, managing changing priorities, it's not the #1 reason, but it becomes the #1 result, the #1 benefit. The visibility, increased team productivity, and delivery and speed to market. These benefits that are being reported by 81, 83, and 88% of the respondents, and this is thousands of respondents, these are immense. Now, within the same survey, they also asked the question, what are your challenges? And the challenges in adopting and scaling Agile. And chances are, you may be encountering the same challenges. And year after year after year, #1 challenge is the company philosophy and the culture. And this is true in any country. This is cross countries, but this is my coaching practice in Europe has spanned 7 countries. And in every single organization, if there is a kind of friction and resistance, it's because of what Agile recommends and encourages and what people are used to. There was one company where they wanted to do Agile. And the management said, oh, we read the book, it's easy. So they bought the Scrum book for everybody on the development team, said, read it, and now do it. What do you think happened? The next year, they sent their developers and Scrum Masters to the Scrum training. Because it's more than just what we read. I mean, one of the common phrases is that you can't learn to play a piano by reading a book. You can't learn to ride a bike by reading a book. You actually have to do it. And it's the same thing with Agile transformation. You actually need to do it. And you'll probably make some mistakes in the early stages. So you need to also be compassionate with your efforts to try things out. I mean, I make mistakes. My teams make mistakes. But we saw the benefits and we said, okay, we will continue. We will persist with this and we'll learn. And that's the reason for retrospectives and learning and making changes. So the big factors in any Agile transformation, the company size itself. Smaller companies are easier to transition. The company history. How has it worked so far? One of my clients in Switzerland was a 120-year-old company. They had processes upon processes. And they like things to be predictable. And they didn't really want to change how they worked. And to top it off, initially I started there with one manager who was the Agile champion, but he got reassigned to a different country. So the Agile initiative was now moved on to a department where the director was the person who introduced stage gate process to this organization. Stage gate process is basically classic waterfall. He introduced this 9 years ago. It was very successful. Why would he want to change? Right? So the Agile transformation will encounter, and in your cases probably as well, will encounter cases where you know what the ideal is, and then the reality is who is the person here, what's the history, what's the organization. And all of that needs to be taken into account. All of that will contribute to the success and the smoothness of the transition itself. So how does the company work? The company culture? Do they want things to be predictable, or do they really value innovation? Your companies, how would you say? How much do you value innovation? What would you say?
You have to, because change is constant.
You
If you
have
don't
to.
do it, then you die.
We agree, you have to. How much is it actually done, is the question.
My question is, where is the breaking point in the organization when the top says we're going to do it, and the resistance somewhere 3-4 layers down the road?
Yes, and this is often the case. There are cases where, actually in most cases, now I'm making a generalization, but in most cases, the top management wants to see the benefits, the top 3 benefits we saw earlier. The people in the trenches who do the work, they actually want to work faster and have things more visible. And the in-between layers, like this director I spoke about before, they may have other agendas. So this is about, oh, sorry about that. This is about the management culture, right? How supportive are they of the change, the transition itself? How much control are they used to, and do they want to continue to have? There are managers. I worked with one particular CFO who wanted to have the right numbers to do the projections about earnings and so on, and was very concerned that the introduction of Agile may take that away. And once I worked with him and showed that we can still get those projections, but they're done differently, once he saw that he is getting meaningful numbers that he can trust, then it was no longer a question of control. It has to be done my way or the way we've done it before, but I need to get that information. Let's find a way to do it. So this is all about management culture.
So what you're saying is there is an extra massaging required depending on the recipient of the message. In this
You
CFO's
always-
example, for example, yeah? He
Absolutely.
thinks in the process that this has to be accurate. If he doesn't accept it and you didn't do the additional massaging, he would have locked his door.
It's exactly that. It's about know the target audience and cater your message to the target audience. So in any coaching engagement, I typically try to have an initial interview with the stakeholders, as cross-sectional as possible, to get an understanding of the individuals. I mean, yes, get an understanding of their goals, what they want to achieve, and what are we shooting for, but more importantly, the individuals involved, because that is actually where the unpredictability comes in. And that is at team level, and middle management and upper management. It's all across the organization. What's their leadership commitment? How much are they willing to support this? And what's their willingness to adapt? This is actually the biggest unknown. Because to just say, this is Scrum, we do these ceremonies, and this is how it works, that part is easy. And then the workers themselves, are they willing to try? Or are they, yapa? Abaka baba. Are they yes men, or are they actually willing and wanting and hungry to take initiative and to be responsible? And that's not always evident. And sometimes that is something that can be taught and encouraged and cultivated. But it's not for free, and it doesn't, it's not for sure. And then what's the market and what's the competition? Oftentimes, a client comes to me and say, well, so-and-so is doing that, I want to do that, without necessarily knowing what is involved. So these are the main factors. And if you look at the actual path of how a transition plays out, the terminology that's used here, this is a model that's introduced by James Shore and Diana Larson. They use the terminology of fluency in agility, not maturity, Because maturity has that connotation of you're a baby, you're an adult, and then you die. Whereas fluency, it's like language fluency. People are fussy, people are able to communicate at various degrees of fluency. So there is the basic level, the intermediate level, the advanced level, the professional, and then I can do it at mother tongue level. So they use this terminology of Agile fluency and identified 4 different stages of fluency, denoted by the 4 stars. From the start of an Agile transformation to get to the first star level, this is a shift within a team culture. This is where we introduce, this is what Scrum is, this is what you do with Scrum, here's the ceremonies, this is what needs to happen, here's the schedule, this is what you need to do. It's the mechanics of what happens at team level. Or similarly, this is what Kanban is like, and so on. From that introduction, we get to the level of fluency where the team focuses on value, actually pays attention to, are we working on the most important thing? Is the product backlog prioritized? And they start looking at things from business perspective, not just, oh, I'm the front end, here's the back end guy, we talk or we pass things to each other, but actually what is the business value? The second level of fluency is they shift the skills. They start to pair, they start to code review, they introduce the XP practices, and they focus on delivering value. So not just focus on the value, but paying attention. What is the market cadence? What are the market pressures? Being able to deliver value frequently, and not just to the staging server, but actually to production without bugs. And reveal the obstructions early so they are addressed before they bite us.
Can you clarify that statement?
Yeah? Reveal obstructions early?
Yeah.
Reveal obstructions is, the previous speaker talked about, do you have retrospective and is it the same things that come up over and over? Well, if there's an obstruction in a team at this level, I expect that it's not the same issues that come up over and over, that it actually gets addressed, whether by the team, whether by the Scrum Master, or by their management. One of my questions to the managers is oftentimes, when was the last time you removed a team impediment? At the management level. Because you have a role to play, you can contribute to the team's velocity and smoothness to deliver, right?
Yeah.
So those things get addressed at this level.
Thank you.
Diana and James also report that, about 45% of the teams that they discuss this with arrived at the focus on value level within 6 months to a year. It's pretty easy to teach the mechanics. They can arrive at this stage within a year to 2 years at this delivering value. To get to the point where they optimize on value, you actually start paying attention at the organizational level, not just at one team or one team and a sister team, but actually what is important for the whole organization. Now we're talking about structural shift within the organization, a change in decision making, a change in prioritization, a change in, here's this org chart portion, here's their priorities, here's the priorities over here, here's the priorities over there, and they may not be aligned. When they're not aligned, they may steal resources from each other. Oh, I get my bonus according to this, who cares about that one? That alignment is absolutely essential to get to the point of optimizing value at the organizational level. Only about 20% of teams that they interviewed actually arrived at this level. It's not an easy task. And optimizing for systems, cross-pollination of perspectives, stimulating innovation, optimizing value stream. This is an organizational culture shift. Now, some of you know about Spotify, yes? Yes. They are often held up as, oh, this is an incredible Agile company. Yes. Their secret is that they grew up Agile from the get-go, from when they were small. They did not have to go through, they did not have to go through the transition. The companies that have to go through the transition struggle with this part. Some may arrive. So for example, Zappos did not actually say that they're Agile and so on, but they operated with the mindset. They were willing to experiment with it. So, they are getting close to that, but it's not an example of a classic traditional enterprise that was doing waterfall before and then transition. So this roadmap is a good guide. You can get more information on Diana and James's website. It's called Agile Fluency. And there's a few more considerations about what can be tried and what the challenges are at each of the stages. So sometimes when talking about Agile transition, it may be relevant to ask that question openly. Do we just want to get to this point where we focus on value? Or do we actually want to get here? Because to get here, this can be a 5-year effort. I mean, you mentioned you've been in this 3 years. And you see that some teams may have arrived here, but not yet the whole organization, right? Facebook operates at this level and may be approaching this. Well, if a company has 2 billion users, they better work well. Now, most of us don't have that volume, and maybe because of that we don't have that pressure, and maybe because of that it's harder to convince people that this is where we need to go. But the conversation can be had, and here's a tool that you can use to guide that conversation. So the truly Agile companies, they define their own culture, solve their own problems, and they don't do cargo culting. You know what that means? No? Okay. So cargo culting this is an example. It comes from this tribe in Polynesia where there was a US air base, and the indigenous people were seeing that, oh, if you build a runway, if you clear out the space, and you put up fires alongside, that this big bird comes in and drops food and supplies and so on. So what we need to do is do that, and food and supplies will show up. Right? So this is just following what other people do without understanding the reasons they arrived at that particular behavior or structure. Basically, and what that means here is, oftentimes people talk about the Spotify structure. Oh, they have squads, so we need to have squads. Are your squads serving your needs? Are they behaving in a way that serves your organization? That is actually the bigger question. It doesn't matter what it's called. Is it team? Is it squads? Is it a group? The label doesn't matter. The reason for that structure matters. And in Spotify's case, they arrived at that structure because they were responding to their needs. they were changing that structure. They were tweaking it for the past 7 years. Okay? Now, sometimes some people would just, read the paper from Henry Knieberg and say, oh, okay, this is what they do. This is what we need to do. Be attentive to your company needs. From that survey, we know these are the top 5 tips for, it says for scaling, but it's actually also for transformation. Having internal Agile coaches, having executive sponsorship, who understands what it means to be Agile, to operate in Agile way. Consistency in processes and practices, implementation of a common tool, and having Agile consultants and trainers. I mean, these are the external, these are the internal, so it actually adds up to quite a bit. And I mean, yes, this is what I do, but what I'm telling you is when you're transitioning, you can make your mistakes yourself, or you can bring somebody else who can point to the potential holes where you may fall in and warn you. Or if you do fall in, pull you out and get you out, or help you pull yourself out sooner. So how to make it easy? Or at least how to avoid some of the problems that we can say, oh, this is, generically speaking, this is what they are. Absolutely get alignment on the goal. If you have an org structure with this group over here, this group over here, this group over here, if they have different incentives, different goals, you potentially have an organization with warring pieces, pieces that are potentially sabotaging each other. So absolutely work on getting alignment on the goal. If this guy does not behave, this guy falls too. Okay? That's really what you need in the organization. And get alignment based on what is the market telling you, what do your users need, what do they want, and some of something that was mentioned in previous talks. Having your workers be happy, or at least reducing the churn rate, the people leaving, and so on. And what does that mean? Knowing your workers. Many studies show that happy workers result in happy customers. Yeah? And I mean, some of you have heard that sometimes it's difficult to hire the right people and have the right skill sets. Without the right skill sets, your company will be limping. It will not be flying high smoothly. Get your workers, as the saying goes, get the right people on the bus in the right places. And if you can't find the right people, you train them. You must train them. If you can't just pick up or get or hire people and put them in, then you need to train them and keep them happy. Producing early results, this creates momentum. If you don't produce any results, the number one question is, why are we doing all this? Why are we spending time, money, training, coaching, changing, disrupting, if there are no results? So focus on producing early results. And when the teams experience successes, they also get motivated and they get the momentum to keep going. Plus their managers get the momentum to keep going. So these are some ways to make things easy. And then you experiment, you inspect, you adapt, and you refactor. It's not enough to just inspect, adapt, and slap, slap, slap. If you have technical debt, address it. Because if you don't address it now, you will pay for it later. It's going to bite you. So absolutely, you need to keep things clean. And there's that balance between delivering new features and refactoring and keeping the code base healthy. Well, that's needed. And not just your code base, your organization. You may need to refactor your organization because now you have different either structure or decision-making considerations. And yes, you build incrementally. You guys shouldn't be strangers to this. You start with a little Jakarta or Batavia in 1850, you incrementally build it up, and incrementally add things and build things up. That's just a recipe for how to proceed. Start small and build incrementally. And progress happens when you go one step at a time. And you Indonesians know this one. You can gotong royong. Because in any good Agile team, people help each other out. Not just within the team, but also through the vertical channels, or hopefully the organization is flatter, but through the channels of decision making, people help each other and listen to each other. It's in the Indonesian culture. Agile is not that difficult. Agile is not that different. Speak up. Own your opinion, your decisions, and your conviction, and your commitment to make things happen and to deliver. So that's all I have for today. And if you want to have additional conversations or want to have conversations after I leave for Switzerland, contact me here and we'll arrange something. Questions? Yes.
Hi. Finally, Q&A. So, the Scrum Master from Venice, this is very, very interesting. So, I would like to get your experience. Probably you can share with us. You have a lot of experience in transforming the traditional companies. They know they had a problem, they come to you, and then after that, as you said, you will be aligning from every aspect of the elements, including the team itself.
Yes.
So my question is, when you do it, and you know at the end of the day, you will show some of the root cause and what is the issues, and then what is the element? I mean, how do you define, based on your interview, how do you get the real root cause and what is need to be changed?
What is changed?
Yes. And then what kind of approach? Because sometimes, like you said, everyone is using Scrum. Let's do Scrum. This is the book, just read it. So, but again, Agile is not about only Scrum. Probably that's the well-known, but it's about the adapting to the culture of its own company. So, what I would like to know is, when you do the interview, what is the kind of process? You know, which best practice probably it can be implemented in the company, and the common one is Kanban or Scrum. At the end of the day, if you choose Scrum, which I know the Scrum we have 3 roles, and how you can make sure they have the existing team. If you apply Scrum, who is going to be the Scrum Master? Who is going to be the PO? Who is going to be the Scrum team? Because like you said, probably if the company have a budget, they can hire someone more experienced. Otherwise, we need to train them. But how to make sure we train the right people for the right roles?
Okay.
So I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let me start with the second one. Who does what when we transition?
Yes.
Right? And we don't know. I don't know. I come in, these are people I've met for the first time. So it's not always obvious. Sometimes it is. Sometimes in one team, there was a project manager and he wanted to be a Scrum Master. Others sort of expected that he would transition to being a Scrum Master. So I would start with him. And historically, I was a project manager who became a Scrum Master. So I know it's possible if the person is willing and has the aptitude, is willing to be a servant leader. And that's not just being a reader or being a servant, right?
Yes.
So in one team, well, in a couple teams, we actually tried several different people. We rotated. So one person 2 sprints, another person 2 sprints, and then we made the decision after 4 people to say, okay, which one of these 4, I asked the team, which one of these 4 served you better? And there was a clear nominee where the person himself was surprised that other people said that he was the best one in filling this role. So it's not always obvious. Sometimes there is a candidate, and sometimes there is a candidate, somebody who wants to do it, and he's not the right person or she. That happens too. So you start with, can it work? Let's make it work. And then if it doesn't, inspect when done. And then it's something that you discuss with the team. Yeah.
Yes.
So I have never really hired a Scrum Master just because we're doing transition.
Yeah.
Often we're hiring a Scrum Master because we actually need more people, and then a Scrum Master is a good one, especially if we bring in somebody with experience. That is something that makes sense. But otherwise, my preference is to build from within.
And how about if, the traditional organization is always like the top to down. They just find it, okay, let's do Scrum. Okay, let's make this guy or this girl to be the Scrum Master or to be the team.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, I agree with you. Let's try it. But how to, at the end of the day, we explain to the person, if you want to do it with your
When I
patient.
accompany, if it's my client, I'm actually focused on helping them do that role. So most of the time, the first sprint, I'm there full time, and then I reduce my participation within that team by building them up. So oftentimes I would model the behavior, and this is what needs to be done, and then say, watch what I'm doing, and now you do it. So oftentimes that's how I approach it. Oftentimes there is somebody who is a clear product owner. Sometimes it has happened in my experience where the project manager becomes the product owner because there wasn't one before. Because decisions were sort of haphazardly made and fed to the team, and then the team was not working on the top priorities. So in such cases, we transition the person who could have been a Scrum Master to being product owner, and then somebody else fills the Scrum Master role, probably from the team. Probably part-time, not ideal, but you start with what you have. I start with what the company has, and then we try to produce early results and keep the momentum, and then make changes as we go along. So in many companies, we start with one project, and then I end up being there for 2 years, helping them along the way, depending on what comes up. Okay?
the first one. How about
The first one. Remind me, the question is,
It's really important because, again, like I said, sometimes we need to know the culture, the company, and
Yes.
also the people, and then how we define which best practice or agile approach is suitable to them.
It depends on the nature of the company, the nature of their product, delivery, and so on. For example, in Switzerland, the rail company was very conducive to operating in Kanban manner. And it was just, it suited them better and so on. Where it's not clear, I typically start with Scrum because it is the most popular method, but I don't stop at Scrum. If it looks like this team, like all operations team, I start them with Kanban, period. It just doesn't make sense to do a 2-week sprint planning for operations. So it depends on what the nature of their work. But if it is software development, or if it is something where they can say, here's our wish, and we want to time box it and focus on that, then typically I start them with Scrum. But it's not a given. In some cases, Kanban is a better way, but most of the time I start with Scrum.
Is there any
If
case?
they want to change, and I've had teams who wanted to change, we said, let's try it. And my rule is, let's try for 2 sprints, and if it doesn't work, we change.
Thank you.
And time is up, so I can answer your question after, or we will have at 5:30, 3:30, we will have a session here for answering any other questions. So come back at 3:30. Thank you.
Thank you.